Hello and welcome to another topic analysis. This video we're going to talk about the January-February topic for LD, which is resolved. The United States ought to become party to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and or the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. So starting off with the definitions. The United States refers to the U.S. federal government, which is the actor of the resolution. Become party to is to join or ratify, and or is either or both, so you can sign both of the treaties or just one. UNCLOS refers to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which is a comprehensive international sea agreement. And the Rome Statute of ICC, or the International Criminal Court, is an international court made up of different countries that investigate crimes that happen in individual countries. So for the first part of the topic analysis, we're going to be talking about UNCLOS. The first affirmative contention idea is that of military deterrence. The argument is that if the U.S. Navy presence can be sent to those specific areas under the U.S.'s exclusive economic zone, we will be able to deter against China and Russia's threats that they are currently making in those specific regions. The second affirmative contention idea is environmental regulations. Another reason as to why U.S. joining UNCLOS is good is because UNCLOS is not solely a diplomatic agreement, but it's also an environmental one. And one of the key ideas inside of UNCLOS is that it has regulations, such as requiring licenses, before the US can actually start mining or even fish inside of their EEZ. The third affirmative contention idea is that of economic benefits. Intuitively, if the US gets its own EEZ to mine rare earth minerals and also fish inside of their own fisheries, it would boost economic growth, creating more jobs, enabling us to transition smoothly into a more renewable energy future. Now let's talk about some negative contentions. The first argument is deep sea mining bad. Because UNCLOS accelerates DSM, that increases ocean acidification as well as chemical pollution of the seas. The argument is that if the US signs onto UNCLOS, that would enable different companies to get leases out of UNCLOS and increase deep sea mining to get a profit. But the issue is that companies don't necessarily do a good job of mining the ocean sustainably, but at the same time, even if the DSM regulations are existent under the UNCLOS agreement, the affirmative still increases DSM inevitably, and there's still going to be some level of chemicals that are going to flow into the ocean. The second negative contention idea is that of marine intellectual property rights. Article 244 of UNCLOS mandates that member states under UNCLOS publish information about major MSR programs, which disincentivizes innovation. Essentially, what MSR is, it's basically marine species research, which is increasing the amount of genetic knowledge for biotechnology that countries can extract out of the ocean. The only reason why companies would want to explore and also innovate inside of the ocean is because they're able to get a profit. Once they patent something, they force other people who use the patent to pay a certain amount of money. And so under UNCLOS, that means that major MSR programs are going to be underfunded because they're not going to be able to benefit or even profit off of their patents. And so due to this, there's going to be less biotechnology that is going to be developed, and over time that hampers our ability to combat diseases because our patent technology in the area of public health isn't as strong. So now shifting over towards the International Criminal Court part of the resolution. So now let's talk about affirmative contentions. The first contention idea is accountability. The US ceding to the Rome Statute will increase accountability for its war crimes. And so while there are other countries that are accusing the US of increasing war crimes in past or even current wars, the US saying that they are going to listen to the International Criminal Court would send a signal to those other countries that they are trying to increase accountability for their own actions. The second contention is that of hypocrisy. The US is criticizing other countries for a lack of justice regarding humanitarian rights, but at the same time, the US is also being the one that is criticized for not being party to the International Criminal Court, and that increases hypocrisy because other countries are criticizing the US for not actually doing what they're criticizing them for. And so the US signing onto the ICC would enable the US to use more of its soft power, because now other countries have to listen to the US because the US isn't being hypocritical. Now for some negative contentions. The first one is that of constitutionality. The argument is that the ICC violates the US Constitution and thus it will be struck down. The first part is that the ICC makes defendants wait for a year before they are able to enter into a trial. However, inside of the US Constitution, it says that you can only wait for 3 months before you get into a trial. So that's the first difference. The second issue is that of free appeals. So for example, if a US soldier gets into a trial under the ICC, even if the soldier is considered to be innocent, there's going to be an unlimited amount of appeals that are going to happen from the prosecution side. And so not only would that increase the amount of clog inside of the courts, but it would also mean that all of the US members are going to be stuck in these ongoing legal battles without actually being able to make change or get out of this so that they can focus on other issues. The third problem is that there's no right to a jury, meaning that even if there are trials, the soldiers or the defendants aren't going to have access to a jury, which in some cases people consider it to be not democratic. The second contention idea for the negative is the ICC legitimacy collapsing. The argument is that insofar as the US is ongoing their human rights record, which is extremely poor, getting membership onto the ICC would only undermine the perception of the ICC's legitimacy. Because the US is a country that other countries are constantly criticizing for a lack of HR accord, the US signing onto the ICC without actually changing anything would just undermine and taint the image of the ICC, which is supposed to be a beacon of justice as well as impartiality.